All right, let's talk about the Linux kernel. We're going to pull back the curtain on how one of the world's most complex software projects actually manages to organize itself. It's a fascinating story about a hidden system that, honestly, makes the whole thing work.
First, just to set the stage, try to wrap your head around this scale. We are talking about tens of millions of lines of code. It's constantly being worked on, constantly being updated by thousands of developers scattered all across the globe. It is a beast of a project.
So you gotta ask, right? With that many cooks in the kitchen and that many moving parts, how does anyone know what anything does? How does a new person even begin to get started? How does it not just collapse into absolute, total chaos?
Well, the answer is a really clever and, importantly, a really rigorous documentation culture. See, this isn't some afterthought. It's a mandatory, essential part of how the kernel gets built. Because without it, you're right, progress would just grind to a halt.
So what did the Linux community come up with? Their solution is a system that's designed to keep the documentation as close to the actual code as possible. It's called kernel-doc, and the core idea is just brilliant. Instead of writing some separate manual that's out of date the second somebody changes the code, kernel-doc puts the instructions right there, inside the source code it's describing. It means the documentation literally lives, breathes, and evolves right alongside the code itself.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. If you're a developer, you might look at this and think, oh yeah, I've seen stuff like this before, and you'd be kind of right. But kernel-doc has its own unique rules, its own syntax, that have been tweaked and perfected over decades to fit exactly what the kernel needs.
And this just shows you the difference perfectly. On the left, you've got a plain old piece of C code. And on the right, same code, but now it's wrapped in this special kernel-doc comment block. It's ready to be transformed from just code into shared, useful knowledge. The format is super specific, and this is absolutely key. Every single one of these documentation blocks has to start with that special double slash. Then you need a quick one-line summary. After that, you've got to describe every single parameter using that @ symbol. And it even requires a special section for context. This is critical stuff like, can this function put the system to sleep? What locks does it need? This level of detail, it's completely non-negotiable.
So let's dig into these rules of the road a bit more and see how this very structured system keeps everyone on the same page and creates one single source of truth.
You know, it's a hard-learned lesson, but it's true. Even the most brilliant engineers on the planet need clear instructions. You just can't assume someone can read your mind, no matter how smart they are.
And this note, pulled right from a comment deep inside the kernel's source code, just says it all. Here you have a developer who had to spend 2 hours arguing with top-tier chip architects just to clear up a misunderstanding because the documentation wasn't precise enough. That is exactly the kind of painful time waster this system is built to prevent. Okay, so a developer follows all the rules, they write one of these perfect little comment blocks in a source file. How does that chunk of text actually become useful documentation that another person can read and search through?
Well, the process is actually kind of magical. It all starts with a single, simple command. The kernel's build system uses this powerful tool called Sphinx, and it just goes out and scans every single source file in the entire project, hunting for those special comment blocks.
And this is what you get. All those little comments, scattered across thousands of files, are automatically scooped up, formatted, and turned into this professional, searchable, and cross-referenced website. It's a beautiful system that turns tiny code-level comments into a huge library of knowledge. But here's the thing. This system does so much more than just explain what a function does. When you really look at it, you realize it's the key to making a project this massive sustainable for the long haul. So why does this matter so much? Well, for one, it takes thousands of isolated comments and weaves them into one single searchable library. This makes it way easier for new developers to get involved. It makes sure that critical design decisions don't just live inside one person's head and get lost. And ultimately, it lets a huge distributed team work together, all building on the exact same shared understanding. And really, the big takeaway here isn't just about code. What the Linux kernel has done is create a masterclass in how to manage shared knowledge. It's built on 3 really simple ideas. 1. Keep the documentation right next to the thing it describes. 2. Have a strict, agreed-upon format so everyone's speaking the same language. And 3. Automated. Use tools to turn all that raw input into something polished and easy to use. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, a question for you. What's that crucial piece of knowledge in your work or on your team that just relies on someone's memory?
What's that one unwritten rule that everybody just kind of knows? And what would happen if, like the kernel developers, you finally took the time to write it down?